Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're excited to have you here. My name is Jessica Torres-Proctor. I'm Director of Guidance. And tonight, we hope to give you much information about college application and the process. I know that college application season has officially started, and so we want to provide you with as much information as we can to get you through that process, because we know that it can be a lengthy process that creates sometimes some anxiety. So hopefully we can help you answer those burning questions that you have tonight. Our senior class house counselors who are here next to me, Mrs. Krensick, Mr. Thornton, and Mr. Ruffalo will be presenting tonight. Hopefully everybody was able to pick up a handout on your way in, but if not, feel free to go to the NVHS guidance website. We also have a link available there for you to review. And to go ahead and get started, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Krensick to get us going.
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. So good to see all our students and families here this evening. We are here to really walk you through the college application process. We understand that students are at different points with this process. We want to make sure that we cover all that information for each student here. What we like to talk to our students about, obviously we wish we were in the building last year with our juniors. We typically like to start with the college search process. The college search process, we have different resources for the families. Oops. Is this working?
Can you advance, Tone?
Can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. We like for our students to start with the college search process. This looks different for every student in terms of where you have started. Some of you started last year as a junior, maybe so much spring semester, junior year. Some of you guys are just getting started this year. We do have a lot of options for students with the college search process. Can you advance a slide? Here are some resources for our students, direct links. We will be posting this presentation on our guidance website for you to access these links at a later date. The biggest resource that we do have is our school links, which is the first link that you see. We introduced school links to our students their freshman year. It is our college and career search platform. On school links, it's only student access. They can access that on their student splash page using their student account information to log into Google. The college search process is great. You can kind of identify a school based on 2-year or 4-year. You can identify a school based on major specifically. You can search for specific schools by state. It really does tailor a student search based on the student's needs. Academic, maybe the social needs, what they want of a college experience, and the financial need of the students. So our #1 search platform is the school links. Our students have been using this since freshman year. We just want to touch on that as they go into their senior year. If a student is not sure where they want to go, we want you guys to start with school links. Also part of the college search process is our college visits. Last year, we were able to hold college visit virtually. This year, we're able to host those in person. We have college reps that come and see our students here at Neuqua Valley, which is great. They are here during their lunch periods, so 3 through 7. We're able to have a calendar for our students so they can plan ahead and see what colleges are coming to the school by each day. If you can click on the link to see the calendar. This is our website, College Visits tab on our guidance website. If you scroll down, click on the click here for the student calendar on the left. Go to September. We have all the schools, the reps that are coming already on this calendar, okay, through September and October. If a student would like to attend a rep visit from, for example, Illinois State, and they're coming to our building during their 3rd period option, but they have math, for example. On the College Visit tab on our guidance website, the student will have to fill out a college permission form, get that signed by their teacher, in advance. Do not come the day of the visit. We will not allow that. Make sure you plan ahead. That way your attendance excused from math class to attend that college visit. Again, this is going to be in our Student Resource Center, which used to be the College and Career Center, right on the first floor on their way to the Commons. Again, college visits are available starting in September. Students in the room, make sure you plan ahead for those. Another component we like to talk to our students about in terms of the college search process is to make sure they're tailoring the search based on their academic credentials, their financial needs, and also making sure they meet the requirements. So it's important we talk to our students about this is you have what we call a safety school. A safety school is we know for sure that your student will be admitted to that school based on their credentials. So say for example, a school requires a 24 ACT and a 3.5 GPA. The student that's applying has a 3.8 GPA and a 26 GPA. You're above the requirements, so most likely you'll be admitted to that school. So we want to make sure that students have as many safety schools on their list of colleges to make sure that they can get into that school. There's also target schools, which your credentials are right in the middle. If they require a 3.5, 24 GPA, and that's what you have, those are considered target schools. Some students will apply to REACH schools. Not every student in this room will apply to REACH schools, some will. Those are your Ivy Leagues, your highly selective schools. All those schools are all considered highly selective for students. It's the top 1% of admission rates, between 1% to 10%. So we want to make sure that if you are applying to those REACH schools, not everyone in the room will, you understand that those are REACH schools, all right? Mr. Ruffalo is now going to talk through the college application process.
This is quite a crowd for a 98-degree evening. Thank you for coming. The next section is really the meat of what this presentation is about, and it's walking through the application process. Now this week we have Guidance Essentials. We had 5 presentations today. We had a little over 200 students attend, and we're going to do the same thing tomorrow and Thursday. So students have potentially the opportunity to listen to this 2 or 3 times. But most importantly, we're available in our offices. And before I go through the nuts and bolts, there's a couple things I want to say to the parents. It's a bit disconcerting when we get phone calls or emails from a parent asking us for a letter of recommendation for their child. It makes us wonder if a parent is calling and saying, "Can you explain this part of the Common App to me?" I've had kids go through this already, multiple kids. I'm sure some of you have. And I think it's important to consider that if you feel confident that your child is ready to go off out of the house into college, then hopefully they're able to handle this. So we believe your role is to assist, not to do. Does that make sense? Right, because we want, one of the things that we're going to emphasize with your kids is to use the resources that are available to you. And we hope that you'll do that as well. Because if you have kids in college, you know you can't call them. They won't talk to you. The college, not your kids, or maybe both. Okay, so if you call a dean or if you call a professor, they won't return your call. All right, so this is the last chance to teach those advocacy skills. Okay, so that's what our goal is for the year. Okay, so let's start with the types of applications. There's generally 3 different kinds, and we got the Common App. Schools themselves have their own applications, and then there's something called the Coalition. So some schools have both. So would you click on the example? And scroll down a little. So Illinois State is just one example. If you know you can get into ISU, you really want to go to ISU, and that's the only place you want to go, then maybe you just do their application on the left. On the other hand, if you're applying to 6 schools and maybe 4 of them are Common App, including ISU, then it might be more prudent to do the Common App. Okay, so just be aware that there are multiple ways to apply. A lot of people assume that the only way to do it is through the Common App, and that's not true. The Common App covers approximately 900 schools in the United States. There are over 2,000 four-year institutions, so they're covering less than half. One of the things that I want to point out to you in particular is this thing called the FERPA, okay? That has to be completed. The FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So as students, this is not for the parents at this point, it's for the students. You have a right to what gets sent out to and from educational institutions. You have a right to view what is sent. And so you're going to be asked, do you waive your rights? Yes or no? Well, why would you waive your rights? Because part of the application process in the Common App are a series of recommendations, not just letters, but forms. And when colleges see that you have waived your rights, your recommenders also see that. And so the colleges will assume that those recommendations have more credence, that the people who are doing those recommendations are going to be honest. As opposed to, I don't waive my rights, oh, they might see this, and recommenders may think, I need to protect myself a little bit, and maybe not be as genuine and honest as I may have otherwise. And so if you don't have anything to hide and you've chosen your recommenders well, then there wouldn't be anything to worry about. We can't tell you to waive your rights. That's just the picture of how that goes. Okay, so think about what you want to do with that. Every year there's a good number of seniors that apply to a school early decision. And that's usually the more highly selective schools. Statistically, it varies from one school to another, but generally, Northwestern is one example. If you apply ED, the chances of admission are far greater than if you apply regular application or regular decision. Okay, do your research, but most importantly, think about if you apply to a school early decision, you only get one, and if you apply that way, you have to go. It's a binding contract. Okay, student has to sign, parent has to sign, counselor has to sign. And so keep in mind that whatever the cost is, you may or may not get financial aid. So if it's an $80,000 a year school, which I think Northwestern might hit that next year, you got to keep these things in mind. More common thing is a priority deadline. You're going to see that for lots and lots and lots of schools. Big Ten schools do it, other flagship schools, even private schools. And basically it works like this. Let's say there's a deadline, an early application deadline of November 1st. You get everything in by the 1st of November. They let you know, usually by the 1st of January. Sometimes, depending on the school, the admission requirements are a little easier. Not necessarily below what is published, but they get a lot of early applicants, they admit, and then they look at how much space they have left for admission and they say, okay, with what we have left, we're going to take the best that comes next. And so oftentimes your numbers have to be higher. Early action is kind of a blend between the two. It's not binding. Schools are going to be very specific about what that means. So I don't want to, there's a lot of different scenarios with that. So I just want to make sure you're aware of the term. And if you have questions, please call us. We can help you out. So this year, is the first time that NCAA is combining two different platforms, Common App and School Links. And if you, how many of you done a Common App so far? Okay, did you get stuck when it said something about School Links and assigning recommenders? Yep, okay, because we haven't got, I saw a dad raise his hand instead of a student. So that part of School Links has not been turned on yet. Okay, that is tomorrow. We wanted to wait until we were done with these presentations. So, I think what Mrs. Krensick talked about where School Links is, okay, you can get through it through your single sign-on, you can get through it through the NCAA Valley homepage, through NCAA Valley guidance, and so on. So once you get there, you're going to look for the Student College Application Manager. Now, the video, there's two of them that we will have posted in various places. Google Classroom, our website, the NCAA Valley homepage, a lot of different places. Watch the videos, and I'm old and I watched them and I got it. It was simple. Okay, so you guys won't have any trouble. So watch the videos and it'll take you through what you need to do. One of the issues that we've been hearing a little bit is students asking for letters of recommendation, parents asking for letters of recommendation, and not really understanding the process. So if you went to college in the US and you needed a letter of recommendation back in the day, somebody wrote it, maybe they gave it to you, and you were responsible for sending it out. Or maybe the teacher or the counselor, printed it and sent it. Okay, that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, the letters of recommendation never go to the student. They don't get emailed, they don't get mailed. They're always uploaded into some sort of system because this is how the colleges do it now. All right, so until we get something, some link, whether it's through Common App or Coalition or some other means, we can't send a letter of recommendation. So, a lot of students have done it properly. They've contacted either their counselor or their teacher and asked if they would be willing and able to write a letter of recommendation. They ask what's needed. Sometimes they already know. They provide what's needed, and then the rest is up to us. So, students, if you have any questions about that, come and see us, and we'll help you out with that. Some kids are not really sure. I got an email last week. I need a letter of recommendation from a teacher. I'm not really sure how to ask. That's okay. See, the student asked what to do. All right? That's the advocacy piece. All right? So if your student is saying, I don't know what to ask, go see your counselor. That's what you tell them. Go see your counselor. Tell your counselor you need help. Okay? So, the assigning of recommenders is done in School Links. You need the email, and make sure it's the exact email address of your recommender. So if it's somebody at NCAA, a teacher or counselor at NCAA, you have access to that on the website. Okay? If the email is incorrect, your recommender will not get a notice saying that they need to do something for you. If it's somebody outside of NCAA, outside of District 204, you can enter their email address. So if you transferred from another school, you can put that teacher or whomever into School Links. Just make sure the email is correct. So along with the letters of recommendation are transcripts, possibly. And I say that because, again, things have changed, and for a variety of reasons, there are some schools that they call them self-reporting, meaning you apply to the University of Illinois, they're not going to ask you for a transcript. They're going to say, enter all the courses you've taken in high school and the grades that you've earned. That's self-reporting. Later on, let's say you decide to go to U of I, and you tell them, I'm accepting admission. Then they're going to ask you for a transcript, and that's when it gets sent. This is all done through school links. The highly selective schools and some others in Common App will want what's called a mid-year report. So if you've heard that senior grades don't count, you heard wrong. For two reasons. One is this mid-year report, it's first semester senior year grades. The other thing is, when you graduate, we're going to ask you, where do you want your final transcript sent? So I'll just keep using U of I as an example. You say U of I, we send it to U of I. They're going to look at that final transcript. And U of I in particular is looking for two things. One, were you honest on your application in your self-reporting? And two, what happened to your grades senior year? Now, every year, there's about 20 students whose admission is revoked in the summer at U of I. Usually, it's because senior year grades plummeted. So, if you've had a 4.2 up until now, and this year you get a 4.0, that's not a plummet. That's okay. Okay? But if you had a 4.2 and you go down to a 2.8, that's going to be a problem. So, keep doing what you have done to ensure that there are no surprises for you comes the summertime. Okay, Mr. Thornton's taking over, talking about testing.
Does it work? It works. Top left. Top right. Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to see all these faces in here. We said it earlier today during Guidance Essentials. The last time we saw some of your faces, you were sophomores. So it is really good to see how some of you have grown. Obviously, I have not. Some of you have stretched out, gotten taller. Hopefully you play baseball. That's a sidebar. So let's jump into testing. So with standardized testing, go ahead and, there we go. So obviously we are in a time where a lot of schools are going test optional. As it was mentioned earlier, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you reaching out to some of these institutions. As the consumer, you need to know, or students need to know what they're getting into. You as a parent need to know because obviously you have the checkbook. But students need to know which schools are test optional and which are not. So the website you see, fairtest.org, will give you the opportunity to find out if a particular school is test optional or not. We talked about it earlier in Guidance Essentials. You can go to a school's website and you can see, generally they will have the 50th percentile, the range for the 50th percentile. So basically they chop off the top 25%, the bottom 25%, they come up with a range. If the range is for an SAT is 1,000 to 1,200, and your kid has a 1220, 1230, 1240, etc., you might want to send the test. Reason being, and Mr. Ruffalo, correct me if I'm wrong, in some instances, some schools will use the test to determine scholarship money. If everybody sends in an application and everybody has a 4.0, how can they determine who gets scholarship money and who doesn't? There has to be another factor that comes into play. And sometimes it is that test score.
But again, we want to make sure you check the website for that kind of information. Generally with your test score, you're in a situation where you've got a great opportunity if you're not a good test taker, okay? You don't have to send it. So for you guys, the test score can only help you. So when Mr. Thornton was talking about with that middle 50% range, if you're above that and you send it, it can only help you, right? You can't get hurt by it.
Thank you, sir. Another part of testing and the agencies, we do not send test scores out. Students should be going to either actstudent.org or College Board and requesting their test scores to be sent to the schools that they are applying to. We do not send out any, whether it's school links or any copies we have, which we no longer get copies. We do not send out any test scores to any schools or any scholarships or anything like that. So all test scores need to be sent from actstudent.org or College Board. There are some fall dates. There are some dates coming up for both the ACT and SAT. Generally, there are 7 opportunities per school year to take the ACT and or SAT. Those can also be found on collegeboard.org and ACT Student. So some steps and deadlines. Deadlines are very, very important to us. Very, they're highly important to us. If any of the students were in Guidance Essentials early today, I made a statement, I live by it. Failure to prepare on your part does not constitute an emergency on our part. Why do I say that? Because we have approximately 860 students and we have 3 counselors. So it is very important that we adhere to deadlines. As you see, this is a marathon. I know some students have already gotten a jump on doing Common App. Some of them have done other institutional applications. That's great. But this is a marathon. And as I said earlier in Guidance Essentials, being admissible at Neuqua Valley, 9 times out of 10 is not the issue. Affordability is the issue. Especially when there is a child behind, there might be 1 or 2 already in college. So being admissible, I've been here 7 years, I've already had 2 graduating classes. Never really had a problem with a student being admissible. So we want to make sure that we're not rushing through this process. This process isn't done until your student actually sets foot on campus. But in the meantime, we need to be aware of these deadlines. So November 1st is probably the biggest, the most important deadline. It's kind of the first priority deadline. And we said it earlier today, if a student comes to us October 24th saying, I need a letter of recommendation, it's probably not going to happen. We're going to try. We're going to try our best, but more than likely it may not happen. We need at least 2 weeks lead room to be able to produce, to be able to do our best. We want to, with each of our students, we want to do our very best. We don't, sign our names to mediocrity. So the application process is easy because all we're doing is we're reporting, grades and things like that, behavior maybe, this kid's great. But when we sit down to do a letter of recommendation, obviously we look at the student's self-evaluation form. And we check to see what don't we know about the student. We know the students are great. We can see by the grade point average. Colleges can see by the grade point average that the student is strong in the classroom. What else are you bringing to the table? And we look for that when we're doing our letters. Like what stands out? Give me some background. Give me some stories. I inherited my caseload during their sophomore year. I didn't see you all as freshmen. So for me, for you, learning me and me learning you, it's a process. So again, we want to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward. I say it a lot with my baseball players. We don't do mediocrity. I don't do mediocrity. So I like to put my heart and soul, if a student brings me a self-evaluation and they've put their heart and soul into it, then I owe that student my very best. We just need the time to do so. As informed consumers, you should be reaching out to the college admissions reps. If you saw, when you go on to the calendar and you start looking at the schools that are coming, if you click on the link is going to tell you which college admissions rep is coming. That rep is the person assigned to reading your application, your letter of recommendation. That's a person you want to get to know. And if you can't catch them in the school, there is absolutely nothing wrong with sending that person an email, calling that person on the phone. I'm a phone person. It makes me itch to see students texting each other. Hey, you want to go out? Like, when did that start? I guess I'm getting old. Because I'm used to connecting. So I want to make that phone call to that college admissions rep because that person is reading your application. And if you can catch that person while they're here, they can put face to application. I remember that student. That student was great. Had a great conversation. And that's the person, if you're on the bubble, that's the person that's going to go to bat for you. That's the person that might be that push to get you over the edge and get you admitted to that school. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with contacting the institutions and or the college admissions reps because we don't know it all. So why not get it directly from the horse's mouth? It's probably my favorite part right here, college athletics. We tend to have a number of students who get recruited to play Division I and Division II athletics. As such, hopefully by now, students have completed have been on the eligibility website, have received their ID, their NCAA clearinghouse ID. Students should know how many core classes they have right now and how many they need. Obviously, you need 16 core classes to be NCAA Division I and II admissible. Core classes being English, math, science, social studies, world language. If you don't know whether, you're scratch that. We have a worksheet that we use to come up with the NCAA GPA. Because Division I and Division II schools don't look at PE. They don't look at family and consumer science classes. They look at those 5 core areas. And from those areas, they create a grade point average. And that grade point average can be the difference in whether a school wants to recruit you and or offer a scholarship. So you have to be aware. I actually learned something. Mr. Ruffalo talked about highly selective institutions, and I learned something last week working with one of my students. She's being recruited and has verbally accepted admission to Northwestern to play soccer. And she had already had 15 core credits going into her senior year, so I knew she was fine. So she had taken some classes that she was really interested in. She had selected some classes that she was really interested in. And then I get an email from their assistant coach saying, our compliance officer has indicated that she does not have enough core classes. And I was taken like, what? Wait a minute. Like, am I doing my job right? I had to go back and recount. I looked at the worksheet, like, that's not right. So I responded back like, okay, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Teach me. And what was said from his compliance officer was, yes, she has core classes, but senior year, Northwestern requires 4 core classes. Now, she had a math, and she had her two English classes, and they even took consumer econ, which the NCAA does not count as a core class. They counted that as a core class, even though it was just a semester course. So I had to go back, and we had to go back and forth, and I had to almost redo her schedule. I had to take some classes out and add some classes so that she met the core requirements for Northwestern. Moral of the story, highly selective schools may have a different set of rules. They extend their rules. So it's not just 16 core, it's 16 plus. So to be aware. Again, transcripts must be sent directly to, well, no, they're not sent directly. So transcripts for schools will go through school links. Transcripts for anything else must come through Parchment. So if you need a transcript for a job, some parents are looking for transcripts for car insurance, clearinghouse. That has to be, you have to go through Parchment. If you go to the NVHS website, on the left side it says transcripts. That'll take you to Parchment, which is the transcript platform. NAIA Athletics, you just have to be admissible. NAIA is it's a smaller level, but it's still highly competitive. I know in years past we've had athletes turn their noses up at NAIA schools. I myself am from an NAIA school, and I played with 3 Major League ball players in the years that I was there. 2 actually got to the pros, 1 got to AA. Highly competitive. Opportunity, and if you're an athlete and you bleed a sport like I bleed baseball, it's a great opportunity. And again, with NAIA, you just have to be admissible. Financial aid. So I am over the kind of keeping the scholarships up to date. We will be doing a financial aid meeting. I won't be running it because I don't know everything about financial aid. We will have a professional here on September 20th to talk in depth about the financial aid process. Most important takeaway from here is the FAFSA application. So I said earlier that this is a marathon. FAFSA is somewhat a track meet. You want to get that in as early as possible after October 1st. Reason being, there's a bucket of money that's being given out. First of all, let me take a step back. Does everybody know what the FAFSA application is? Free application for federal student aid. So there's a bucket of money that's out there. And when that bucket is empty, it does not replenish. So the earlier you get your application in, the better chance you have of receiving, whether it's scholarships, grants, or loans. Because again, that application sometimes makes the difference on whether a student attends school A or school B. You apply to some of the highly selectives, and the cost of attendance is $75,000, and they're giving you $5,000. But you apply to this other school, and it's $75,000, and they're giving you $50,000. Decision making. So we're going to have a professional to come in here and kind of explain that. But what I do want to say about the FAFSA application, it is now a state law. It is a graduation requirement. So either you're going to A, do the FAFSA application, or some parents choose not to, and in that case, there's a waiver that has to be completed. But you have to do one or the other. So either you're going to do the FAFSA, and they do a check. Mrs. Torres Proctor, they do a check, and they come back to the school, and they tell you who has not, who has, and who hasn't. It's a tattletale. So you either do the application or you do the waiver. I mentioned earlier that I kind of handle the scholarships and the search engines. There are a number of scholarships that are out there and that are available. If you all have, if as parents, you guys have younger students, younger kids, middle school, elementary, there are scholarships for elementary students. It blew my mind when I saw this website. If you go to our guidance page and you go to, it's on the College and Career tab, I highlight a website called JLV College Counseling. JLV College Counseling. The lady's name is Jessica Velasquez. She was an admissions director on the West Coast. She's had several positions within the college realm, and she has this really comprehensive scholarship website. And there are scholarships for elementary students all the way down to graduate students and beyond. So I've told students when I actually started to meet my students in the beginning of sophomore year, first semester, and a couple of them made mention of, hey, when should I start doing scholarships? I think they were surprised when I said, you can actually start now. It's very competitive. The scholarship process is very competitive. It is not easy by any means. It's highly competitive. But I can guarantee that you won't receive a scholarship if you don't do the work, if you don't complete the application. So I just kind of highlight that particular website. There will be I will be doing a local scholarship seminar in January or February. I think it's late January, where I highlight the scholarships within the district. Very impressed, me coming from the city and from the south suburbs, very impressed the way Naperville takes care of our students, the way the district takes care of our students, putting scholarships out there, giving our students opportunities to receive scholarships. And that local scholarship fair, or not fair, but the local scholarship competition and the applications, those students are brought up on stage during awards day, when we do that in school. Really good opportunity. There are a number of them, and I will highlight them in January, in late January. So our supports and resources. Mr. Ruffalo said earlier, so again, guidance page, we told the students earlier, if you have not seen that, please get on that. Please, 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 because there's a lot of information. Google Classroom is only accessible for the students, so we put our the code up for our students who are not on. Very excited when Mrs. Krensick and I went on to look at how many students were on there. We had over 700 students signed up for Google Classroom. I was like floored, because normally we will get like 400, 500. I don't need Google Classroom. I'm doing Google Classroom for everything else. And so to see 700 on there was very impressive. We open it up for, emails. Did I pass it? Oh, I did pass it. Email addresses. This one tickles me the most, and probably my two colleagues, because as Mr. Ruffalo stated, if you don't spell our names correctly, we will not get the email. And I have seen so many emails where I'll actually receive the email in the beginning. It will say, hi, Mr. Thornton, Thorton. And I'm like, okay, so it says Thornton at the top, and you still typed in Thornton. Okay. Like I've kind of gotten over it. But make sure that you are spelling our last names correctly, else we will not get the emails. And again, we can't be held at fault for a spelling error. Make sure you type them slowly, reread it to be sure. But again, we are resources for your students, for you parents. If you have questions, please give us a call. But if it's something that your student can ask, hey, talk to your counselor. Ask him this. Hey, if you want to write a list and give it to him, hey, go talk to your counselor. Self-advocacy. It's all you, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you very much for being here tonight. I know that we've provided you with a lot of information that may have more questions in your mind. What we ask, we do have a session here at 8 o'clock for which families will be coming in very soon. We do ask that you go home tonight and think about what we talked about and put together, if you have questions that you would like to get answered, please put this together, in an email to your individual school counselor, and they'd be glad to answer those as fast as they can. All right, so thank you very much. Have a good night, and we'll be seeing you soon.